I spent the past couple weeks campaigning with some people that spent 4, 5, 6 years with John McCain in Hanoi. And their association with John is important to them, and their message about that association is important to them. And they hung out with John in very uncomfortable circumstances, and they're proud of that relationship, and they stepped forward, and John's proud of their relationship with him.
Because a lot of POWs that were with him in the camp said he was a collaborator of the enemy. He gave the enemy the information they wanted.
And he gave highly classified information. The most important of which was he gave the package routes, which were the routes to bomb North Vietnam. He told in detail the altitude they were flying, the direction, if they made a turn, and how to get into Vietnam.
Now, when someone betrays their country, then they are a traitor.
But we do know that when he was there, that he cooperated with communist news services in giving interviews that were not flattering to the United States.
He also gave them where the targets were of their primary interest, whether it was a railroad, whether it was a bridge, whether it was an ammunition or fuel dump or whatever it was. He gave them what primary targets the United States was interested in. After he gave them that information, then the Vietnamese naturally moved their anti-aircraft defenses into those areas and built them up and strengthened them. They also moved rocket aircraft weapons into the package routes of where the airplanes were flying in or egressing. The result of this, according to the information that came out later on in intelligence, was that the Vietnamese started knocking down our aircraft in greater amounts than they had before. In fact, there was an estimate that we started losing 60% more aircraft and more men than we had previously. This went on for about a month, and it got so bad that they finally called off the bombing of North Vietnam because of the information McCain had given to them.
Now, when someone betrays their country, then they are a traitor.
That he was given special treatment, and he was put in a room with 2 other defectors who were later given special treatment.
I was very proud that the overwhelming majority of POWs behaved in an honorable fashion. Unfortunately, we had a couple that didn't.
Information shows that he made over 32 tapes of propaganda for the Vietnamese government.
He made those transcriptions, and in the transcriptions, I heard a POW who heard them coming into his cell and said, "Oh my God, is that Admiral McCain's son? Is that the Admiral's son? Is that Johnny telling us that our principal targets are schools, orphanages, hospitals, temples, churches?" That was Jane Fonda's line. Where are those transcriptions? Believe me, they're in the archives of the museum, the bragging phony military museum in Hanoi. McCain could not have one of those turn up in the middle of a presidential race.
He didn't want nobody to check his background.
Now, when someone betrays their country, then they are a traitor.
Vietnamese offered me a chance to go home early for propaganda purposes because my father was a high-ranking admiral. The Code of Conduct says that people will go home by order of capture. There was a guy named Everett Alvarez who'd been there 3 years before me. And so, and also it says sick and injured. The reason why there was some question is because I was pretty badly dinged up at the time, but I'm grateful that I was given the strength to make the right decision, which was to say no.
And it sounds so good at first. McCain was offered the chance to come home. They called him the Prince. And he could have. But nobody ever takes that one step beyond that. If Admiral John McCain II, Jr., if his son a lieutenant senior grade, had accepted this princely status and come home in 1967, while the others would sit there for 5 years, what would the Navy have done with the son of an admiral who opted to get special treatment and come home? No Navy career, no House seat, no Senate seat. Would have been the end of his career. And they were offering him this chance to go home in one of the 3 groups that came home in '68. And McCain calls them.
We're all collaborators.
Yeah, and McCain called them this, except for Doug Hagel. The Slipperies, the Slimies, and the Sleazies. I once forgot one of those names, and he refreshed my memory. The Slipperies, the Slimies, and the Sleazies. So that meant that he would have become a Slimy, a Sleazy, and a Slippery, ruining his career, and the admiral's son goes home. So what I'm saying is, yes, he chose to stay, but did he have an alternative if he ever wanted to have a life? And what would it have done to his father?
Senator McCain seemed to be one of the people that was an obstructionist, who was not interested in the truth coming out, who tried to attack people rather than learn what they had to say.
Faith in country, you have to always believe that your country is doing everything it can to get you back home.
Probably did more harm to the idea of trying to get the truth out than any other single person through the efforts he did to block the release of classified intelligence dealing with the POW/MIA problem.
He didn't want nobody to check his background.
Many documents were held back for no reason, and our goal on the committee was to just dump this stuff, to declassify it literally to the public. But of course, they withheld information from the committee. The U.S. government held all kinds of information from the committee, withheld information from the committee. I know that for a fact.
And he didn't want nobody looking into his background in the camp, what went on in that camp. That stuff is still classified, so nobody can see it. And he just had it classified forever, so nobody will ever look at it.
That in Hanoi, he saw McCain turn red in the face. He even used the term Rumpelstiltskin, jumping up and down in place in a rage. If you release any of these records that you have here in Hanoi on me or the other POWs, you will never get diplomatic recognition.
Now, when someone betrays their country, then they are a traitor.